Hello, I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking for FinextraTV, and I'm chatting to Chris Mills of Finastra. We're talking about digital transformation through managed services and a recent IDC report titled New Service Models to Accelerate Innovation in Banking. So Chris, hello.
Hello Debbie, how are you?
Great, lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
You heard me mention the IDC report.
Yes.
So I think my first question is going to be, what was the aim of the report, but more importantly, what were your key findings?
I think it's really important for us to take stock across the market, to listen, to understand, especially in these challenging times, how clients are responding and what their priorities are. So we found out that it's really about asking questions around the demands, about how CTOs and COOs, that the industry leaders are responding and how they're using their team, in terms of resources, and how they are looking for software vendors, both service and product, how we need to respond as well. Mm-hmm. So from a findings perspective, it is, as I said, challenging. We had 40% of financial institutions are telling us that the pandemic meant that they had to accelerate and increase all of their digital first initiatives. So it's were they even ready? So the pandemic, brought that to the fore and help them to understand what they needed to do. It's about innovation, which is almost, in my eyes, that's about competitiveness. There's no point innovating unless, what's the outcome you're looking for. And then I think it's really about the models, the infrastructure, the support mechanism, the resources, the focus that you put together to deliver to that innovation. And then finally, it's really about that combining of service and product or functionality. And that sort of outcome we found incredibly important, helping us to design our own response to that as Finastra.
And you mentioned CTOs
Yes.
at the beginning of your statement.
Yes.
And in the report, it talks about CTOs
Yes.
and a shift from builders
Yes.
to conductors.
Yes.
So what does that mean and why is that important?
So I think, if almost defining the term, so building, to me, that term is about, we've got one aim, one goal, you've got a singular path of delivery. It's quite myopic, it's quite blinkered. And I think what we're finding with the challenges across the market, they're multi-threaded. You're having to consider many different deliverables, many different aspects. How do you do that? You leverage all the resources at your disposal, including partners, internal and external. So that combination means that you need to be an orchestrator, a conductor. You need the trumpets, you need the violins, you need everybody working in sync to deliver to those business outcomes. So that shift, I think that shift has been occurring for a number of years. Labeling it, I think, helps define that interrelationship that we have with our clients.
And you talk about labeling it, and before the cameras rolled, we were talking about terms that we often hear in these discussions.
Yes.
And two of those terms I'm going to throw back at you.
Go on.
One is challenges
Yes.
of digital transformation.
Yes.
So in your opinion, what would you say are the challenges of digital transformation and how can these be met?
So I think I'll almost think of it, there's the external challenges across the market. Now across financial services, you have everything from retail banking all the way through up to corporate banking. You've got insurance, you've got all aspects of the financial services industry. And I think that we as individuals, when you take the CTO hat off, everybody's got a smartphone, and that gives you technological capabilities that have advanced so much in the last 10 or 20 years. So the market, as individuals, expect such a high level of responses, of updates, of improvements, of increases. So there's a real demand from the rest of the market that this is what the expectation level has gone through the roof. Internally, within the market itself, you've got regulatory issues, you've got compliance issues, resiliency, you've got all the demands within the industry that are meaning that, again, you as a CTO are having to respond to that. So the challenges are sort of twofold. There's the hypothetical market ones, and then there's the very clear ones around regulatory concerns and deliverables there. You only have to think externally also about sustainability, about ESG, about net zero targets, massive impact across the market that didn't exist 5 years ago.
There's so much at play all at one time.
Yes.
And I think the next question, is pretty self-answerable, but why do you think banks are prioritizing innovation?
Yes.
And more so in terms of our interview,
Yes.
how can managed services accelerate this?
So I think innovation for me is a term that's used to capture that competitiveness, that responsiveness to their own clients, their own consumers, as we said, from top to bottom. And I think what we're doing, managed services is another term to capture the blending of services and product and that functional capability. So, you have to start to think about what are the functional and business capabilities you need at your fingertips, at the best people within your organization at the banks, and then what's the service wrapper around that? What do we need? Is it about how, what's the uptime? How accessible is it? Is it about scalability? Do we need to roll out that capability across the globe and it doesn't just sit in, the standard financial markets? What do we do with emerging markets? So all of these things are captured in the way in which I think about managed services. It's the wrapper around that capability. It's, I want to drive a car, but how do I make sure it works every morning? It starts every morning, therefore, and I also look good and it's red and it's fast. So all of those things. So that's how I think of managed services.
Right, so even more so about how you think about managed services. In your opinion, how does Finastra managed services differentiate from, let's say, for example, a long-established software integrator?
They've been doing this for a long time, and without overplay, Finastra has embarked upon this model because of those demands. So we've been doing it for a lot less time. Where our advantage has got to be in terms of our product proximity. We know the products, that functionality I was talking about, the fingertips. We understand that better than anybody now, but almost more importantly, we can guide it and we understand it better in 5 years' time. So that service wrapper is actually helping us to mold our own product development, our own capabilities. So that we're offering what we believe to be world-class software in a world-class service wrapper. And I think it gives us the best possible outcome for businesses, for long-term strategic outcomes. And we're measured by the KPIs that matter most to a business. Not just technology, but what's the business outcome? What does the head of payments need? What does the head of lending need? What does the head of treasury need in order to grow their business over the next 5 years?
Lovely, thank you. And as we bring this interview to a close, I'm going to throw at you, please can you give us 3 tips to banks who may be considering a managed service?
3 tips. I would say, let's take the service part first and the product side. So be very, very clear about what your business outcome needs to be. So, and I mean, drill down to KPIs, drill down to metrics that we can then look to provide that service. It is, as I said before, it's about resiliency, and it might be from a compliance and regulatory perspective. It'll be around functionality and capabilities there. How often do you need upgrades? How often do you need the world-class software at your fingertips? How often does that frequency need? So any of those KPIs from a business perspective are really important. So that's the first thing. I'd say the second thing comes back to your own resource, skills and capability. Understand where you want to draw the line. What responsibility would you want Finastra as a service provider to take on? And what do you wish to retain? And it's often there shouldn't be any grey areas. You want a nice hard line where that responsibility, or even overlap, where that is very clear about who's doing what. So KPIs, service levels, and then finally, I think it comes back to that orchestration point and the conductor point. I think it's be prepared to develop a long-term strategic partnership, 5 years, 10 years, etc. And that means that there is your peers. So work out in a clear relationship. We expect hard questions, and you should be expecting them back, because that's how good relationships and partnerships work.
And I like what you said. You need to be clear about who's doing what.
Oh yeah, we have workshops who run through to run through this on a regular basis, and I think the most interesting and most involved conversations are exactly that. it's, in our terms, it's a RACI, it's roles and accountability and responsibility. And that conversation is often the most dynamic and the most important.
Wonderful, Chris. Thank you so much for your insight. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you very much indeed.